We discovered this guy in the late '80s, early '90s. Just happened to stumble onto him and then realized he was the guy that played the solo.
I still have no idea who plays it, so I didn't. I tried. I'm trying to stay away from all this stuff, so to kind of be surprised or
Right.
learn a little bit, you know.
Learn.
Uh,
Okay.
Learned.
Okay. You ready to get to it?
Let's do it.
Welcome to the Greatest Lists podcast, a show about music and lists. This season, your hosts Jason and Eric are counting down the top 25 guitar solos of the 80s and the top 25 guitar solos of the 90s. Think your favorite made the list? Tune in and find out. Take it away, boys.
Welcome to Greatest Lists, a music and talk podcast featuring lists of the greatest songs of all time. I'm Eric, your host for this episode. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Jason. What's going on, Jason?
Hey, dude. This is a great song. Very anxious to hear you break it down, man. Yeah.
We are continuing our Season 2 list of our favorite guitar solos of all time. And currently, we're working our way up the top 25 guitar solos of the 80s. And in this episode, we're talking about the song Easy Lover from Phil Collins and Philip Bailey.
Behind the music.
So the guitarist on this song is a guy named Daryl Stuermer. Daryl Stuermer was a touring member of the band Genesis from 1978 to 1992, which is how he met Phil Collins in the first place.
Gotcha.
And he joined the band as a touring member after the departure of the original Genesis guitarist, Steve Hackett. And he actually played both bass and guitar for the band while he was working with them. In 1981, he started playing for Phil Collins in his band when he went out on his solo career, which is how he came to perform on this song, even though it was recorded for Philip Bailey's album Chinese Wall. The song went all the way to number 2 on the top 40 chart and is Bailey's only top 40 hit.
I wonder why. No, I'm not trying to be critical of the man. I'm just saying
he had let's give him a break. He had a few with a little known band called Earth, Wind and Fire.
Yeah, true.
As far as the song goes, in 1984, Phil Collins was hired as the producer for Philip Bailey's solo album Chinese Wall. And according to Collins, Bailey approached him and asked him to if they could write a song together. And Collins said of the song, so we just started having a jam one night, went round and round and turned it into a verse and a chorus, and we recorded it that night so we wouldn't forget it, which is amazing that they
always hit record, people. Always hit record. Goes for podcasts too.
True story.
Always hit record.
The video for the song is basically a behind the scenes of the making of the video. And it won the MTV Video Music Award for Best Overall Performance.
Really? I did
Yeah.
not know that.
Yeah, I remember that.
I remembered that, yeah.
Yeah. As far as Stuermer goes, he plays on 7 of Phil Collins' studio albums. And the guy also has 9 solo albums of his own.
Wow.
Yeah. So I actually... a buddy of mine and I found him through one of his solo albums and just randomly stumbled backwards in his career and figured out he was the guy that played for Genesis / Phil Collins and played the solo on this song, which we even in the 80s when we were metalheads, we still were in awe of this guitar solo. And so that's how we found him before we figured out who he was.
Let's get personal.
So much like I said with Rick Springfield a couple episodes ago, this is one of my favorite songs from the 80s, regardless of the guitar solo. The song is one of my favorites from the 80s. I actually remember recording this song off the radio.
Nice.
Yeah, and remember, so the boombox I had that I recorded stuff on had a tape counter next to the tape player. So I knew at what point this song started, and when it would finish, I could rewind it
Nice.
to the exact point and play it.
I was never smart enough to use the counter. I'm always just gonna hit rewind. Okay, we're not quite there yet. Keep gone too far, and
So I guess you
got
didn't
a counter on it. Come on, man.
You didn't do the same thing I did. Whenever I would record stuff off the radio, I would write the songs on the tape on the case insert, and I would
do that. Yeah,
I would write next to them what their counter number was.
Okay.
So I could put it in a tape and rewind it to the beginning, and then fast forward to the right counterpoint, and know where I was. So but that only worked on mine because not everybody had a tape counter. So
80s technology. Man.
I know, man, the things we had to do. But yeah, I remember playing this song just incessantly, and this song is what led me to look into Phil Collins' catalog. I had heard a couple of songs from Genesis, just because they had videos on MTV for songs. I think what were there was That's All, and then Illegal Alien. They had videos for those on MTV. But this song, so some friends of my parents, they were a little bit younger than my parents, and then the guy in the couple was really into music. And he was always trying to talk to me about music whenever our families would get together. And I mentioned this song one time, and he was like, "Oh, well, then you should listen to this and this." And he had now that I look back, he had an enormous vinyl collection. And he was like, "Oh, then you should listen to this." And he let me listen to one of Phil Collins' solo albums. And that's really what got me into Phil Collins. And then not too long after that is when he released No Jacket Required. Yes. I just wore that tape out too. But yeah, this song is really what got me into Phil Collins, and going backwards and going forwards. So, what about you?
Oh yeah, I've always loved this song too. I don't really think I owned it until last year, when I was buying lots of 45 records off of Goodwill.
Yeah,
and I think I have like 3 copies of it now.
Oh,
just
nice.
Out of buying in bulk, but.
Yeah.
It was not. So I was a huge Phil Collins fan in Genesis, early 90s, late 80s, that kind of era. And I have Seriously Hits Live. I think I have one other Phil Collins hits albums. But this song, it was never on the greatest hits that I can remember.
Yeah, it's not.
Because I think it's, attributed to Philip Bailey.
Yeah.
So it's always been more of a radio hit for me than anything. And I've always this is clearly a case of like Rockwell and Michael Jackson. I'm sorry, Mr. Bailey, but you have it's Bailey's song. It's structured really cool, and we'll get into that in a minute. But
right.
You're hit with the chorus, so you're hearing Phil Collins as much as you're hearing Phil Bailey, if not more.
Right.
So I don't know. I've always kind of grouped it like that.
Well, and the whole reason I recorded it off the radio and I didn't buy anywhere, because A, it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't on Phil Collins's albums, but B, one of the music stores, the music store at the mall, when I was growing up, they had listening stations where you could listen to certain albums before you bought them. And when I figured out it was on Philip Bailey's album, I went and listened to Philip Bailey's album and realized, oh no, I don't want this. This is horrible. So I wasn't gonna buy Chinese Wall just for one song. So I just recorded off the radio. So yeah, I mean, I get what you say. It's that's the only way I would ever hear it, was either the video or because of my taping it off the radio. I didn't own Chinese Wall. I don't think anybody did. But
for us lay people that listen to Top 40, it was a true single. Yeah,
I'm sure all the Earth, Wind and Fire fans bought that album and liked it. But, for us, run of the mill '80s music fans, it was just a single. So,
right.
Yeah.
The breakdown.
So, I mean, beyond the solo in this song, my favorite part of the song is the way their voices blend together. Their voices complement each other so well.
Yeah. The end of the song, particularly when they're doing all the vocal riffs, is really fun too.
Yeah. That makes the song. I don't know that I don't think that this song would have fit with too many other duos. Just because they wrote it, and B, they work so well together.
Yeah.
But the solo though is ridiculous. I mean, it is just truly ridiculous.
I said tasty. That's what I said.
I can prove that because if you can go onto YouTube and find guys who are like doing a cover of this song, and I saw no less than three guys doing the solo. Two of them couldn't get it note for note, and the third guy even says before he does the cover, "It took me forever to learn this solo because it's so hard." And then I saw another one where a guy was like, while he's playing the solo, he's like screaming because it's so hard to play. And it's deceptively hard because it's all over the neck. I mean, he does so many things all over the neck. It's not just in one place. But I've always thought that solo was amazing. And like I said a minute ago, we kind of backed into the fact of who he was because we had started listening to him on one of his solo albums and then realized, oh, this is the same guy that plays that solo. And we realized just how good of a guitar player he really is. But yeah, I've always just been in awe of this guitar solo. Even as a guy that listened to hard rock and heavy metal, there's plenty of choices there for good guitar solos, and this is still one that I've always thought is one of the top guitar solos from the 80s because it's just so technical.
Well, the fact is you've got YouTube people trying to play it and they're screaming and lighting their guitars on fire because they can't.
I mean,
that's pretty incredible.
Just on the surface, you don't think it just doesn't seem that difficult. But once you get into it, it's there's a lot of part of it is very fast. It covers a lot of ground, and it's just a very technical piece of work. And if you get into any of his other stuff and listen to it, he's the same way. It's very technical. Cool. He's very jazz fusion, jazz. He has a very jazzy background, and that's where that comes from. And so, it's always been one of my favorites.
And again, for the length that it is, it's the standard length for your typical single, 16 bars, and it's just tasty, man. And what's really great is the setup. So you get that setup with the drum, and then and obviously it's got to be Phil on the drums because he's got that very distinctive drum sound.
Yep, that is Phil.
I wrote down because I didn't know who the guitar player was. I have no idea who this is, but clearly they know what they're doing. And I was going to guess that it was a session musician, so I guess it's kind of concert.
Kind of is,
same kind of ilk there, but
yeah.
It's more than the solo itself. This song thrives on that bass groove and the drums working together. I mean, you can really hear it underneath the solo when everything else kind of drops out and he starts playing the guitar, and it's just that awesome bass groove in the drums. It's just impossible not to bob your head to or tap along.
Yep.
I mean, the song just gets me going. I love it every time I hear it.
And you can even hear his playing. I mean, he's not like during even the chorus and the verses, he's not playing power chords or he's playing.
No.
He's walking up and down the neck while he's playing during those parts of the song. I mean, it just
fits so perfectly with just the overall groove of the song and the tempo, and just great.
Yeah, it's a very groovy song. I've always thought that, and so that's why it's one of my favorite songs from the 80s.
Yeah, I'm really glad you picked it for the. I had it as an honorable mention. It just was one of those ones should I put it in? Should I not? And I saw it in there. I was like, perfect.
I think that might be the first song I added to my list. So that's how
nice.
That's how much I admire it. So Easy Lover comes in at number 23 on our countdown. I got a couple of bonus songs from Daryl Stuermer. His first solo album in '98 was titled Live and Learn. And so there's a song on that called Determined. And he really cooks the sauce on that song, dude. I'm telling you, he gets it from the beginning. It's such a good song.
Okay.
And then from his last solo album that he put out in 2007, the album is titled Go. There's a song on there called Breaking Point. That's a hot little number. So that'll be our second bonus song. If you have Spotify Premium, which we recommend, stay tuned to hear the bonus songs in their entirety at the end of the episode. If you're a free Spotify user, you get about 30 seconds of the song. Outside of that, we can't do anything for you. You're going to have to use the Song Whip links in the show notes to connect yourself to the songs in your favorite music app. If you want to support us and get your name in the show notes, click over to the Patreon. Click over to patreon.com/The Retro Network, which is our home base. Or you can find us on the Bird app if you want to, at Greatest Lists. Also, you can find us on YouTube at Greatest Lists. Or you can go to our website, greatestlistpodcast.com. You really have no excuse for not being able to find us anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Jason will be back in charge for our number 22 song in the next episode.
Yep.
Trying to think of what it is. Oh, yes.
Oh, we're going to turn it up, man.
Yes, I love it. Thanks for listening to The Greatest Lists, and we look forward to continuing our list next episode.
You've been listening to The Greatest Lists.